Welcome to another episode of our mini podcast, I Built a Company That Makes a Difference by B1, where we talk to founders of sustainable businesses to get their quick takes on how and why they started their companies, and very importantly, some lessons learned along the way. Today, we're talking to Cullen Schwarz, the Chief of Good Thoughts, aka founder and CEO of DoneGood, an online marketplace for ethical, sustainable, and organic products that are made by brands that do good for people and for our planet. Cullen, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate you having me.
You and I have had a few conversations about the really awesome work you're doing at DoneGood, and especially around the philosophy about why and how you started the business. I'm looking forward to getting into this discussion for the benefit of our listeners, many of whom are sustainable small business owners and entrepreneurs themselves. What we found is our audience really, they like actionable, how could I do this better? Kind of advice. And also they really appreciate learning about other entrepreneur stories. So I'm really excited to jump into this.
Yeah, cool. Well, I mean, you talked about actionable. I think the most actionable thing, the biggest way we can all act, the number one way we all impact the world is when we decide who we give our money to. We give our money to someone, we help them do more of whatever it is they're doing. And if that's terrible things, they do more terrible things. And if it's amazing things, they do more amazing things, right? And we always cite the stat that Americans gave $327 billion to charity last year. We spent over $14 trillion buying stuff. So that means 2% of our spending. If 2% of the dollars we spend buying stuff could fight climate change, reduce poverty, make the world better, support good causes, then 2% of the dollars we spend buying stuff would do as much good as all the donations to all the nonprofits in the country combined, right? And so it's just this huge opportunity for change. So we started a site, like you said, DoneGood.com, where we screen all the companies to make sure that every time you're making a purchase, you are helping support really eco-friendly businesses. You are helping support companies that are paying living wages, portions of proceeds often going to various good causes. So everything you are buying is making the world better. So you are exercising the most powerful tool you have to create change. And I just think that it's such a overlooked and underworked form of advocacy, and this huge pile of resources that is consumer spending. Consumers have all the power. It's a supply and demand economy. Whatever we demand, the market supplies. And the more we demand products that are made with living wages, the more living wage jobs there are. And the more we demand products that fight climate change, the market supplies more fight against climate change. So I think this is like the way, you know what I mean? The path. And we try to make it easy for people to use that power.
Awesome. Yeah, like vote. We talk about every 4 years or so, there's a whole big narrative around vote with your dollars, but actually in between those 4 year, and when I'm talking about 4 years, I'm talking about American presidential cycles, election cycles, there's things that you can do every day because of course it is a consumer economy and where you spend your dollars matters.
I think it matters the most, right? Because it's this huge mountain of resources. It defines what our economy looks like, and what our economy looks like defines what our world looks like, right? I mean, if you want to change the world, we have to change business behavior. You want to fight climate change, great. The day that every business in the world is operating as sustainably as the brands on our site, the climate change will be solved. Now, how long is it going to take to get every single business operating as sustainably as these? Maybe a while, but every time any of us make a purchase from a brand that is pointing the way to this new economy, we take a step toward that.
A step closer, right?
And when every business pays living wages, poverty, we'll pretty much have solved poverty. And so every business on our site pays living wages. And so, it's just even about participating in the new economy. These businesses are building the new economic systems we need to really make change. And speaking of voting, I think look, voting is important, right? I think I vote. Everyone should vote. I don't want to sound like I'm down talking all the other stuff. People should vote. People should donate to nonprofits. There's amazing nonprofits who are doing tremendous things. I hope that $327 billion we donate every year, I hope it goes up. I don't want to down talk, like marching, volunteering, donating, posting on social media. It's all important. But I realized I used to work in politics. I was a communications director for a couple of U.S. senators, worked in DC for a while. And I just, all of that other stuff we're doing, but then if we're not paying attention to who we're giving our money to, well, we're giving our money to people who are working directly against us. We're funding the opposition. So cool, yeah, vote, march, donate, post on social media, speak out, march, do all this stuff. But God, how we got to pay attention to who we're giving our money to, because that's ultimately where, like I said, what are we funding? What are we helping exist in the world? So I got out of politics to do this because I thought, well, DC ain't going to solve climate change. It's important to vote, and no matter what, like, they're not going to get the sweeping reform we need out of any capital really around the world. I mean, it's not going to be it's just not going to be a government driven thing. What does have the power to create that change? Consumer spending, because we need to change business behavior, and businesses will chase our money. And that, I think, is that's why I quit my career to do this. I didn't pull this out of a hat. I do it because I believe the shit. I believe that this is the path, the most powerful force for change. And the more we can harness and galvanize the power of consumer spending, that has huge potential. That does have potential to solve major problems, because it's, again, supply and demand. The market bends to our will. The more of us use our will for good and use our consumer spending for good, the better the world gets.
Well, talk a little bit more then about your kind of the origin stories for DoneGood, and a little bit about yourself. You mentioned that you used to work in politics, and that you left to start DoneGood. So take us down
there's
that.
a short answer to that question that starts in DC, and there's a longer one that starts in college. I'll try to give the short, long answer, I guess. So when I was in college, when I was an undergrad, that was like the first wave of, like, I'll date myself, I guess. I was in school at the turn of the century, 99 to 03. And that was like the first wave of like anti-sweatshop activism. It was like the late 90s. The media started doing a really good job of, like, I think, really informing Americans for the first time, like, holy shit, the supply chains that, that we get our products that we buy through, there's some just awful conditions, poverty wages, human trafficking, slave labor. To pause there, I just have to put a finer point on this. Slavery still exists. It's still a $150 billion a year industry. There's more slaves on the planet now than at any time in human history. They call it human trafficking now. That's, these sanitized terms. I tried to let's use the real term, slavery. It's what it is, it's modern day slavery. And so it's a huge thing. And so there's a website you can go to, slaveryfootprint.org, and you can enter the kind of stuff that you have in your house, and they'll tell you on average, how many slaves have worked for you to produce the things that you have. And I've been able, like, I'm the founder of DoneGood, right? Like, I buy things secondhand. I try to buy fewer things that I, don't buy stuff that I don't need. Or, of course, if I'm buying new, I buy it on DoneGood, but like, through those things, like buying less, buying secondhand, or buying from a place that is slave free, I was able to get my number down to like 10. And that's considered like really good. The average person might be 80, 90, over 100. Anyway, that's just a quick aside. But so that in the early 90s, this sort of stuff was just, getting
bubbling to the forefront of people's. Yep.
Exactly. Yep. So I was involved in a bunch of, progressive, rabble-rousing organizations on campus. That time, like later, like we were protesting the Iraq War and against climate change, and all sorts of different causes and things, LGBTQ rights, and but one of the organizations I ended up getting really into and getting into the national leadership of was United Students Against Sweatshops. And we would get our universities to put a code of conduct in their apparel contracts. So, I mean, these are, for big universities especially, these are big, lucrative contracts. If you make all the university's licensed apparel, the hoodies with the university logo in the bookstores, like, that's usually one contract for a couple of years. So it's a ton of money. So we get our universities to put a code of conduct in their contracts, and so any company that wanted to bid on those contracts and make all that money had to demonstrate that they were producing in at least basic non-sweatshop conditions, decent salaries, safe conditions, no forced labor and forced overtime, no child labor, stuff like that. And so that was really exposure to the idea, back then, I was like 20, of the power of consumerism. Because this wasn't public policy, it wasn't a law or regulation, it wasn't a nonprofit. It was just a big customer saying, this is what I want. You know what I mean? And we can demand whatever we want. We demand good products, we demand certain prices, but we can demand values. You know what I mean? We can demand progress for the world with our product, with our consumer demand. And that's what these universities were doing. And I thought back then, well, what if you could get, what if you get 1 million people, individuals doing this? What if you had a site where, like, like half the world was buying shit there, like, wow, you would really change, it would be a revolution, you would change everything. And so that was that initial idea. Then I got a job in politics out of college. And, once you start kind of getting in a career, you do doing that, and you get the next job. And then, I got all the way into my early 30s. And I still had this idea in the back of my mind that somehow galvanizing consumer spending was the real thing, And especially working in DC, everything's so gridlocked. You're fighting the other side to an endless tie, and we need people again. We need people down there fighting the other side to an endless tie. It's important. I'm glad the young kids with a lot of energy are doing it. But so yeah, finally I quit my job. We applied with the idea for DoneGood to the Harvard Innovation Lab, and we got in with the idea. And so then it was kind of like, okay, now I have to do this thing I've been thinking about for all this time. We actually have to do it. So that's how.
And what year
that's how
was
we,
that about?
that was 2015. Well, I guess 2014 we got into the program, but I was still like part-time flying up to Boston once a month from DC and still working. And I went full-time June 2015. So it's been
June 2015.
Next month, a few weeks, it'll be the 8-year anniversary already.
Do you remember what the first 6 months of launching DoneGood looked like?
Yeah, it was primordial stew. I mean, because when we first launched, we weren't what we are today. We've just been running our online marketplace, our Amazon for social good, what Forbes called us, since 2020. That's been the last few years. But prior to that, we've had a couple other iterations and pivots, always with the same theory of change, always trying to help consumers use their spending power to make the world better, to fight poverty and climate change. But we did it in different ways. So at first we were building a local brick and mortar app, more like a Yelp style app.
Okay.
And so we were in the Harvard Innovation Lab, and it's one of these cool co-working space startup. You know what I mean? It's got the latte machine and the cool weird chairs and the bean bags and the ping pong table. You know, I mean, it's out of central casting, the startup space. So I remember that. I remember the free lattes. I remember living on ramen and stuff, because I also was, and I was house sitting because I didn't pay myself for the first year either, right? And so yeah, I was house sitting for free rent and eating ramen noodles for free from the iLab and doing all that, which I think that gets kind of glorified. I don't necessarily recommend that. I have a different relationship with the founders' struggle, their struggle generally, than I used to. I had a mentor at the iLab say, "There's no honor in the struggle." And I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm from the Midwest. Like, struggle is honor, And but what I came to understand from him, I think it was a really good lesson for somebody like me, is that if you have a goal and you need to temporarily struggle, okay, then, and you decide consciously, well, there's no other way to get to this goal other than this temporary struggle, and I would like to struggle to get to the goal. I think there's honor in that, but there's honor in making the choice. I think there's also plenty of honor in saying that struggle is not worth that goal. I'd like another goal. And if you can get to the goal without the struggle, that's the most honorable. Like, we should be going for effortlessness. You know what I mean? We should be trying to do it with ease and only struggling when it is necessary. I think there has been, but it gets conflated, right? It's like, well, then if there's honor in struggle, then you might heap more struggle on yourself just to look how honorable I am, look how busy I am, look how I'm killing myself for my dream and for my startup. I mean, okay, cool if you have to, but some of this shit I think is like, it's they call it struggle porn, and I think that has gotten way too pervasive. And I was a victim, or I'm not a victim, but I fell into that trap through my whole life too. Like football practice in high school, you run till you puke and then you keep running, and there's honor in that. Well, yeah, to a degree, if you have to. But anyway, so yeah, those first few months were like that, trying to set up this app and in this co-working space and eating the ramen and struggling to get something off the ground, which, like, it was going to be a struggle. It was going to be hard. I don't know, in talking about the struggle, I wanted to have that aside because I don't want to glamorize it, and I don't want to help push the struggle porn onto other people or other founders. Try to do it effortlessly. Try to do it with ease. Achieve each of these goals as easily as you can, and then, yeah, if you need to struggle, that's cool. Good for you. But
there's
don't fall into the struggle porn.
I hear from a lot of incubators and VCs about just this. Founders, what do they need to pay themselves? And now, just kind of like in my own shorter journey in entrepreneurship and startups than you, I've seen a shift from exactly that, from like you need to plan to make no money for 3 to 5 years, to pay yourself enough so that this is a non-issue. So
Right.
that doesn't need to be like 100K, doesn't need to be 150K, but pay yourself enough, figure out what that number is, and pay yourself
Yep.
enough so this becomes a non-issue and you can dedicate all of your time to
Yep.
this, and you'll have to find creative couches to sleep on or ways to feed yourself. So just pay yourself
Yeah.
enough so this becomes a non-issue and you can focus
Yep.
on the business.
You can focus on the business and focus not just in terms of your time, but also your mind share and your stress level, you know. And I do think that, yeah, I mean, it's I get it. And I want I underpaid myself for a long. I said I've been doing this 8 years. Well, for like 6 of those years, I was making, I paid myself nothing the first year, and then was paying myself like 25 grand for a couple of years after that, And so even um even now I'm still making less than I made in my last job in DC 8 years ago. But finally a couple of years ago, talked to some of our investors. I was like, hey, yeah, I mean, I'm now making less as a percentage as opposed to multiples. Cause after like 6 years in, it's also, for a couple of years, like, okay, yeah, hey, I think still pay yourself something, if you can. But it's like a year tops with no pay, you know what I mean? And pay the first year if you can. And then, a couple years where you can underpay. But at some point, like, I decided with DoneGood, basically like 6 years in, like, okay, if I can't make, even like at least kind of close to market rate salary or something like that, and if it requires me, the other thing was, right, like, well, startup, early stage, you got to work long hours, and same thing, kill yourself, run yourself into the ground. At some point, if you can't make kind of decent money, and you can't, and it requires you to kill yourself and not have work-life balance, then your startup isn't working. You know what I mean? And so, like, I don't know, like I said, I don't know, maybe a year or two, if you have to, again, if you can have work-life balance and make good money, the first couple of years of startup, do that. Don't do the struggle just for struggle's sake.
Do that
But
better
if
way.
but if you need to like have some struggle for a year or two, but like that can't be 5 years, that can't be 8 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and like at some point you have to. That's what I would always have this question for years. Well, is it working, and what do we need to do to make it work? Well, that's a subjective definition, and at some point, like I said, you know, if it required me not to be able to start to achieve work-life balance after 6 years in and be able to pay myself at least in the ballpark of what I used to make in DC, then it wasn't working. And it has to work. That is now entered the definition of whether it's working or not.
That makes sense. Well, can you take us through the different iterations of DoneGood to take it to where it is today? Because today I think
Yeah.
it's super slick. So what were the
Oh,
less slick angles that you went out to get to here?
yeah, thanks. I thank you for the compliment, the kind words. Well, so like I said, we started with a Yelp style app. And we thought, yeah, supporting local, that's a DoneGood value also, right? I mean, I don't know, kind of. I guess I have mixed feelings about that whole thing about local now, to be honest with you, because there's a lot of local businesses that are not doing good. You know what I mean? Like, just because they're in close proximity to me, it doesn't mean they're ethical or paying people well or good for the planet. And frankly, I'd rather shop with a company a town over that is part of this new economy, that is trying to help, the business for good movement and this revolution we need to solve climate change and poverty. I want to shop with companies who are part of that movement rather than, I don't know, just some random person who doesn't give a shit who happens to live in my town.
Down the street, right?
Right. Yeah, what is it? I mean, kind of what's the difference whether they're close to me, right? It's like, me first, my town first, my state first, America first. Who says America first? You know what I mean? Like, that ain't necessarily my values.
Pretty loaded term these days. Yeah.
Well, we had a local florist who said, "I hope you guys fail. I fly my flowers in from China every day." So one, the carbon of that, and plus he has no idea, that probably these flowers are not picked in where workers are being treated very well, right? So it's like, yeah, this is the opposite of a DoneGood company, and he happens to be local, but who cares, right? I mean, it's and even I'll say, like, even women owned, person of color owned, like, I mean, in a vacuum, yes, I like to support women entrepreneurs, person of color owned businesses, and those businesses could be doing other terrible things, right? Like, these things in and of themselves aren't, that doesn't mean the whole business is kicking ass and paying living wages and fighting climate change and shit, right? Like, so that was the thing. That was the problem, is in the local, we learned a lot about that use case. And when you're in a Yelp style situation, it's like, well, I'm young, I'm on foot, I'm in an urban center, I want some lunch right now. Cool. Let's see if DoneGood has something. Yeah, we have something super ethical,
Yeah.
paying 15 an hour, and it's 3 miles away.
5 miles away, right?
I'm not, that's about 3 miles away. That's like the limit of the Tinder settings in a city. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's a long distance relationship. 3 miles, plus I'm on my lunch break. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not, I'm doing stuff fast. Right. And so asking people to go 3 miles, or we're trying to have a business meeting. We're looking for a coffee shop. Well, it's going to be near, back when people had offices, it's going to be near my office or your office, not maybe your house, or it's going to be in between. It's not going to be, or it's, oh, me and my wife are celebrating our anniversary, want something fancy. I guess Italian. Like, okay, all of a sudden we had 1,200 businesses on the app, but all of a sudden it gets super specific.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I want this kind of food in this neighborhood. Well, I don't know. We don't have that,
Right.
And so, and even to get the 1,200 businesses, that's where we had to put any business that had one of our 8 values. So just, if you were just, you could be just super eco-friendly, or paying living wages, or women owned, or locally owned. But again, those things, the women owned or the locally owned, we go into a DoneGood business, it's just styrofoam everywhere and everyone's earning minimum wage. I said, well, shit, this isn't what I set out to do or to support, So one, we're not solving the user's use case very well, and we're not supporting that great of businesses, you know what I mean? And so,
and that was 1,200 businesses across how many cities?
That was just in Greater Boston. And
that was just in Boston. Okay.
So that's the thing. It's still not enough businesses, and the to get that many, the threshold had to be super low, to get these businesses on, right? And that was just Greater Boston. Now imagine trying to scale this thing across the country and around the world, and then trying to monetize it also. Yelp has, struggled, and their Yelp, they're browbeating small businesses to pay them ads and all this, and they still can't. They can't justify. How do you know if you drove the sale for the business or not? You don't know. And so all those reasons, we pivoted to online shopping, and we even did a lot of research about that, and it turns out online shopping is actually usually more sustainable than shopping locally anyway, especially for consumer packaged goods. Like,
interesting.
If you're shopping for clothes, that local boutique still had the clothes. That's still a global supply chain, likely, that made those clothes. You know what I mean? It's still, the cotton farm's not in your town. The fabric mill is not in your town. The production facility is not in your town. And so it still got assembled in the same supply chain and then shipped to the store instead of shipped to your house. But if you drove your car to pick that item up, of all the things in the supply chain, from raw materials to production to the store to you, the biggest single piece of carbon emissions is you driving your car to the store.
Oh, wow.
So now, if you had, the cotton farm, the mill, the production facility, the store, and you walk to the store, sure, that would be more sustainable then. But that almost never happens. For food, if you walk to a farmer's market and that was locally grown, then maybe that's probably, then something that was shipped. But for stuff, the kind of stuff that we sell, clothing, bed sheets, like I said, consumer packaged goods, it's almost always more sustainable to shop online, definitely, than to drive to a local store, right? And especially because we offset the carbon emissions of every order on the site. So we said, okay, this is actually in real life more sustainable, and we're able to now have a high threshold because we can work with brands across the country and around the world. So now we can have, nobody on our site is not crushing it on workers and worker pay and the environment and all these good things, right? There's no sort of like, well, they're good on this but bad on that. It's like, they're just the cream of the crop. They're just amazing. They're the kinds of businesses I set out to support, the kinds of businesses where if every business in the world was like them, all our problems would be solved. I feel like people think that's like trite or hyperbolic when I say that, but I think it's true, right? If every business paid a living wage, if every business was super eco-friendly, and we have businesses that are just doing incredible zero waste production or carbon negative production. They're the brand. They're pointing the way to the new economy, the new economic systems that are like the future of humanity, the hope for humanity, for us all to continue to live here. I think it's true,
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, yeah. So we can work with great businesses in a more sustainable way, and like the use case for the user, instead of asking you to walk 4 more miles, we're asking you to move your mouse 4 inches. And obviously that's a much easier, when the barrier, the barrier for action is lower.
Don't have to leave your house. Don't have to leave your screen. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Just go to a different website. So.
And then what does your business, what does DoneGood look like today? How many businesses do you have? I know you have a a Chrome extension? Like, tell me all of the, what does it look
Well,
like
okay, I
today?
guess that's the interim. Then we went from the local app to the Chrome plugin. We don't have the Chrome plugin anymore. We phased
Oh,
that
that was
out.
an interim. Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, we said, we went to online shopping. We said, well, we want to get in people's existing stream of behavior. Again,
Right.
reduce the behavior change, right? Well,
Right.
where are people going? Well, they're going to Amazon. They're searching on Google. So the Chrome plugin would work where anytime you executed a search on Amazon or a search on Google or went to a big name, not a Google search that elicited a shopping result,
Mhm.
would trigger the extension. Or if you went to a big name retailer site,
Right.
then if you were searching for products, it would show the alternatives
Hmm.
that from our approved brands on the side of your screen. So you'd punch in
Mm.
something on Amazon, blue jeans, whatever, women's jeans, and then it would show brands on the side of the screen. You'd see everything that Amazon had, but you'd see everything that we had. Problem is, like, you still had to get people to get the extension, to know about it, to install it. And we had also, then it only worked on Chrome. We could have built out to other browsers and stuff too, but still, then it's just desktop while the world's going mobile. And browser extensions just never got as ubiquitous as everybody thought they would back in 2015, 2016. Honey is really like the one that made it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And they're
exactly. I
literally
was just gonna
paying
say,
people.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
paying
yeah.
people to use the thing, right? It's like, here, you will get money. You know what I mean? So it plus we had a Google never made it easy. They kept making it more difficult, and your extensions then by default became hidden, and you had to unhide them. And like they flashed an alert that said we saw 90% drop off in the funnel. You get people to know about your thing, come to your site, and then they're about to install the extension, and then Google flashes an alert that says this extension can read and change all the data on any website you visit. And you're like, look, the only
Thank
data we're
you,
reading,
Google. Oh,
thank you, Google. Like, you were trying to participate in your ecosphere here. You know what I mean? And like the only data we would read is whether you were on a shopping site. And the only data we would change is to show you the ethical and sustainable alternatives on the side of your screen. And
but that was sufficient.
but
That language was
it's
obviously
scary
sufficient to scare anybody.
to scare 90% of the people off. So the
Yeah.
cost to acquire was super high. And it was, we ended up, I don't know how many we got like 20,000 people or something using it, but it was too costly to
Right. To keep
to keep
scaling.
going. And once people became the people who did become hardcore extension users were like, okay, now I'd like to just go to your website and
Yeah.
shop, right? And
Yeah.
so then with the extension, we also developed a like an affiliate site where you could, it was like a shopping site, like Retail Me Not, where you could find the products, but then once you click the product, you'd go and complete checkout on the partners. Well, if you want to buy 3 things from 3 of our partners, now we're kicking you to 3 different websites, 3 different checkout processes, 3 different shipping fees. People hate. Amazon is trained everyone to hate shipping fees. I think people would rather have a $50, rather pay $50 with free shipping than pay $40 with a $5 shipping fee. You know what I mean? So yeah, so then that brought us to 2020 when we had the technology to have an automated marketplace where you could check out on our site, but where with 120 plus brands, which maybe did I answer that part of your question? We have
Yes.
over 100. Okay, but we're doing a crowdfunding campaign now to try to triple that number, which we could talk about a little more too. But
Yep.
yeah, basically with the marketplace, you check out on our site. We really are like what Forbes called us, the Amazon for social good, and with all our partner brands, it's all automated, so they don't have to do any work. That's really important too, because a lot of them are small and medium sized. And so we don't charge them any money up front. We just earn a percentage of sales we make for them. So they always make money. We're always creating value. We're always making them more successful, because that's the point, is for us to help make these brands more successful and the movement more successful. And we can't cost them too much time, right? So they don't have to do anything. When they put products on their site, those products are on our site. They get marked out of stock on their site, they're out of stock on our site. They change the price, it changes the price on our site. It's all fully automated. And we didn't want to do a marketplace until we could have it that easy, that automated. Payment comes from customers. The portion of the brands goes immediately to their bank account. Like, we had to automate it all so that we could do it as a small team and we weren't costing our partners a lot of extra time.
So what is the selection and onboarding process? I mean, is it like couple clicks and you're done? Is it really like this takes 10 minutes or fewer? What is
The
well, I guess that's 2 questions.
The technical onboarding process is super quick and easy. Like, we pride ourselves on that. We didn't want to do a marketplace until we could make it like that. Yeah, it's like 10 minutes. I mean, it's, you connect to our system once, and then basically, you're going to make sales on our site, earn revenue, and not have to do any work for it. I mean, that's the goal. I mean, maybe there's
That
a bug or
sounds
something here
nice.
or there, but yeah, it is nice. Yes, thank you. I hope so. I mean, I think, get brands coming on board. The only reason we ever have a brand leave is because they went out of business or something, right?
Okay.
Like otherwise it's
Your
just through,
your retention rate is like
yeah, retention rate for
100%.
businesses is like through the roof. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, because why wouldn't you? You're not doing any work and you're just making more revenue. And some brands do better than others, but even if it's a little revenue, well, it's a little revenue I wouldn't have otherwise had, right? So we tried to set it up all that way, and that also means, right, that like our business model and our impact, there's no daylight between the two, right? Our social impact is helping divert consumer spending away from supply chains that keep people locked in poverty and destroy the planet. And two, amazing businesses, good people running brands who are, working hard to pay living wages, invest in communities, fight climate change. And that's also how we make money as a business, right? We earn a percentage on those sales, and that's what funds our work and keeps us going. So the technical onboarding process is super quick and easy. The impact screening, we still, I think, pride ourselves on being like very stringent and yet also easier and less, like I said, no money up front and less time consuming than getting certified from a lot of the other, independent certifiers who do a great job. And it just we're not in the business of like super lengthy questionnaires and point scores. We thought about point scores when we first started, but we realize even these things that are trying to do objective point scores, that's still subjective. Who decided those were the questions? Who decided what those points were worth? You can't escape when we're trying to define good. You can't escape. It's subjective. You know what I mean? It's like defining which kids in the class are good. It's like, well, sure, you can have some criteria, but you can have a point score that tells you that kid's a 17 and that kid's a 21. Like, I don't know. It's all subjective. Who made the point score? So ours is more conversations. We talk with people at every brand we work with, and we're asking them questions. And some of this stuff is objective, like a living wage. We can look at the MIT living wage calculator at productions in the States, or we can look for other nonprofit partners in other regions of the world. But so, are you paying people a living wage? That's a number, and then, how can you, safe working conditions, talk to us about the working conditions. How can you demonstrate that you don't have human trafficking or child labor in your supply chain? And for bigger companies, they can say things like, well, we pay an independent organization to inspect and and here's the document.
Here's the report.
And for a smaller one, they can say, well, I've been to the production facility twice in the last year, and there's 12 people working there, and I know all their names, and their names are and I know that none of them are kids, and okay, yep. Like, and so we asked them how they can demonstrate and what documentation they can provide. And on environmental sustainability, there's just so many ways, depending on the industry too, so many ways that you can fit that. And then right, so say back to who gets the point score. We have a company who's like a bigger production facility who's like paving the way for clothing manufacturers, showing them how to do it in a more eco-friendly way. Maybe they're zero waste and they're recycling 90% of the water in the facility, non-toxic dyes, and run on clean energy. Well, then there's a small company that's just like a few ladies making dog collars out of upcycled cowboy boots in their garage. Who gets the bigger sustainability score? I mean, one is doing all this really cool, innovative stuff that the world needs, to show big producers how to do it. But the others probably got fewer carbon emissions, and they're taking waste out of the waste stream because they're upcycling cowboy boots, right? So, like, I don't know who gets the better score. So we don't do scores. We just we have the conversations, and then we tell the stories. And our criteria is like, would our customer base say, "Holy shit, this is a great company"? And if every company in the world was like these, would climate change be solved? You know what I mean, right? And so that's basically the criteria. Are these companies more sustainable than the big name counterparts in their industry? Would the world be substantially better if people shopped with companies like these? And then are they paying living wages? It's always people and planet. Are you paying living wages? Or safe conditions, no child traffic labor? Are you incredibly more sustainable than the big name counterparts in your industry? Then we can also we give people the ability to filter on other issues like made in the USA or women owned, or some things are industry specific, like cruelty free if it's cosmetics, to make sure it's not tested on animals. But you got to be good for people and planet. Those are the things to get on DoneGood. And then the other, as opposed to like the old brick and mortar app, you can't get on DoneGood just being women owned or just made in the USA. You've got to be good for people and planet, and that's good for workers, paying good wages, and being incredibly eco-friendly.
I really like that you talk to all of the businesses. I'm going to ask you next about scale and fundraising, and because I know
Yeah,
specifically what that capital will go to work for and
yeah.
how that scales. Is there, first, let me ask just for the folks on, because my feeling is that you might get some inquiries from some of our businesses, which would be fantastic. I love that. Is there any,
Yes, please let us
who
know.
do
We're
you,
trying to find partners all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, I could rattle off quite a few just from our conversations with B1 merchants who are right in this lane. So is
Yep.
there, from a technology point of view, who do you integrate? Like, is there any technology limitations you have to be with this particular POS, or is it just basically, if
We
you're an
can,
e-commerce store, we've got you.
yeah, well, pretty much. We can do, any of the Shopify, Magento, WooCommerce, BigCommerce, any of those. And then even natively built site, then, I don't know, then it depends. We have to talk and see how it all works out. And, with some companies, we've had less elegant solutions where they like, well, just send us a product update, once a month, because it's tougher to make it automated depending on what they've got. But we've been able to make it work with just about anybody, even natively built sites. I mean, I can't. It depends. And when it's natively built, I don't know. We gotta
Mm,
see what's going on. You
mm-hmm.
know what I mean? But if any of the others, and I don't know to tell you, like Shopify sure is becoming, you know, they're taking over the world. I think like 70% of our brands or more now. I mean, it was like we started, it was 50%, and then it was 60, and then it may be 3/4 or somebody on Shopify. So Shopify is super easy. Even the others, we can Magento, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, that takes care of 95% plus of e-commerce stores in the world. So yeah, but even if you're natively built, call us. We can
Yeah,
check it out.
reach out.
Also the why. I mean, depending what you're doing, we used to have natively built stuff and developers and things, and then we're like, but look, our job is not to reinvent e-commerce. Our job is to market these, businesses and this movement as a whole, and help talk to people about why the dollars we spend are the most powerful force we have for change. And um, we don't need to be reinventing the e-commerce wheel. So we're on Shopify too.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And then
Yeah.
I've shopped on DoneGood quite a few times now. Can you talk about the
Oh, thank
end
you.
user experience, like the what you get back and what you see? That's super powerful. Can you talk about that?
Well, I guess what do you mean? I mean, yeah, you get to, you shop. We can, and I guess we haven't talked about this kinds of selection of products. We're trying to be the Amazon. We have all sorts of home goods and kitchen and bed and bath supplies, as well as clothing, as well. When in this space, a lot, I think people talk about, sustainable fashion. But there are a lot of other industries now that are further along in having sustainable alternatives. It used to kind of be just clothing, and it used to be that clothing was kind of like granola crunchy and burlap sacky, all right? And it all keeps getting more advanced, right? Like clothing now, there's like cooler clothing and like more stylish than when it started. And the other industries, mattresses, bed sheets, really like cookingware, kitchen supplies, beauty products, bed and bath, like coffee. I mean, there are alternatives for just more and more industries, and they're becoming they're so high quality now. They're higher quality than that's the other thing that I think doesn't get communicated enough, is that the stuff is just better. Like Avocado Mattress has won, I forget how many years, the Consumer Reports best mattress, not best sustainably made mattress, just the best one, right? And it's like that with all this other stuff. There's been a bunch of stories lately. Box just came out with another one a couple days ago about sort of saying, hey, do you feel like all your stuff is like less well made? Yes, it is on purpose. Like appliance makers figured out planned obsolescence decades ago. Now it's everybody. Clothing is they're purposely making stuff that'll break down and go out of style because they want to keep us on the hamster wheel of consumption. This shit is all a trick, right? Cheap stuff is a trick. It's cheap now, but they get you buying it every year. And so, some of the stuff on our site is, I mean, it is probably almost certainly a lot of it is very cost competitive. And we do things, we do sales events and discount codes and things to help make sustainable shopping more affordable. We also have a sales page that automatically, when any of our partner brands mark something down, put something on sale, it automatically pulls that in. It pulls those products in. So on our sales page, anything any of our partners have on sale, you can find all in one place. So we try to make these products more cost competitive and more affordable and more accessible to more people. That's a big part of our mission, to help take conscious consumerism mainstream. And that said, I think a lot of them are starting more cost competitive now. But the other thing is stuff that's handmade by someone paid well. These companies are making products that are better and last longer. They're made with care. They're not trying, they're ethical people, so they're not trying to rip you off. They're not for overconsumption, right? Like, and so when you buy stuff, like investing a little bit more money, but on something, you know, if you spend $50 on something you keep 5 years versus $20 on something they got you buying every year, the $50 thing is a better deal, right? Like the cheaper thing is not the best deal. Because they are making everything so shoddy now, purposely trying to make it break down, purposely trying to keep us on the hamster wheel of consumption. And that's, I guess for me, it's just like, you know, that's it. It all just feels, I feel like I'm a cog in the wheel of their system when I fall for their shit. You know what I mean? Like that's as much as like the ESG and sustainability, it's more like this system sucks. Like there's just these big corporate players, like a few of them cranking out homogeneous stuff in some giant mass production facility with no soul and no character and just shoveling at us. And it's shoddily made and they keep us buying more and more. They just assume we're going to buy it because they assume we're mindless consumers. And they just throw this junky stuff at us. And yes, it's made in supply chains that keep people locked in poverty and destroy the planet. And it's just a terrible system. And I just want out of the system and I want off the hamster wheel. And so for me, it's like, for all the like, yeah, sustainability, ESG, it's like, I want out of the matrix. You know what I'm saying? Like that system is awful. And I want to opt out of that system. I just don't want to be a part. It's just soulless and mindless. And it just, I don't know, to me, feels better. The people at like the companies who are on our site are good people who give a shit. And it's like, there's just like care and meaning and heart. And it feels like a more natural human, it's a human experience as opposed to this like cold machinery that just cranks along and makes through. I just don't want to be a cog in that machine. And that's how I feel when I have to buy something on Amazon or at the mall. I'm going into a shopping mall. I'm like, oh, this just doesn't feel good.
Well, I mean, that's one of the big things that we try to do. And it's one of our, it's part of our mission. And you said this as well, to try to make sustainable shopping not this thing that is like separate, that you have to consciously do something differently that's right, way outside of your shopping behavior patterns that you normally have or your route or whatever, and integrate more ethical, more sustainable shopping options and choices into people's daily lives, however, you know, small that is. And that's, I think that was really a cool thing with the Chrome extension, even though it doesn't exist anymore, but that makes perfect sense. That's really cool.
That is really I mean, like the kind of, I think you're exactly right. And I love what you guys are doing because it's all, that's the thing, right? It's like, how do we get in people's existing streams of behavior, right? Like, even if it's something like, you know, I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed because then they realize like, well, everything I do creates carbon emissions, right? And it's like, well, I shouldn't buy something ever, and I shouldn't travel, and I shouldn't go to concerts. It's like you get in this mindset of like, well, I should sacrifice and everything. I feel guilty about sort of everything I do. But at some point, it's like, well, then you feel guilty about being alive. But what's the point is the point is to create a world that is a place where people can be happy and thrive, right? It's like to keep this home safe for people to live and to do things that bring them joy and feed their soul. And so it's right. It's like, some people say, well, not buying anything is the most sustainable thing you can do. And I don't agree with that, right? Like, don't overconsume, don't buy stuff you don't need, don't be on that mindless hamster wheel. And at the same time, Starfish Project, a jewelry company on our site, is helping women escape sex trafficking, giving them living wage jobs, making jewelry, giving them skills training to move on to professional careers, which opens up more jobs for more women and then funds nonprofit wraparound services with every purchase, right? So the most sustainable thing you can do is never to buy anything from Starfish Project. Like, I don't think so. It's about consciously consuming. We're going to wear clothes. It's okay to wear jewelry. Just wearing a little jewelry make you happy. Don't buy too much, but yeah, buy a little and buy it from Starfish Project so that, you know, now this, instead of feeling guilty about this behavior, you can have a balanced life where you buy some things because we're all going to, but in doing so, it's having a net positive effect on the world. And because everything is voting with your wallet, if those of us who care about these issues never buy anything, then we're sitting out the elections. We need systemic change in our economy, and that's not going to happen unless we support these businesses, right? And so we have to participate in the economy to build a new one. Again, don't buy too much stuff. I try not to buy too many things. Everything I own is, like basically fit in my Jeep. And yeah, since DoneGood started, I buy some new shirts because I like supporting these companies and these shirts are nice. And then I get to like sort of participate in society. You know what I mean? And I just have ragged, holy clothes all the time. And so the same thing with like going to see a concert. You're like, oh, well, this is a frivolous, affluent activity. Well, but they're doing amazing things now where they're like capturing the heat and capturing the energy from the dance floor to power the thing. And they're doing zero waste festivals. And now if a portion of each ticket also supported nonprofits, so like, what if now going to concerts made the world better? What if all the stuff we enjoyed doing? So instead of asking people to sacrifice, you're saying do something you love, but let's set up these systems where it's a net positive effect. That's the key. That's the key to all of it. So all of us finding ways to say, okay, cool. In the just creating that turnstile, that hydroelectric dam in the river that is people's existing behavior. Instead of asking them to change behavior, saying, cool, let's set up a flywheel for good in that existing behavior. That's the key. That's the key to everything.
I like that a lot. The thing that I like, it's small, but it's not small, is when I buy something on DoneGood, I see the metrics about the impact of the things that I bought. And for me, that is, again, something that's small because it comes on your receipt, but it's also huge. And that makes me feel, you were talking about how you feel like you're in a rat race and you're kind of duped as a consumer when you have to buy something from a merchant, a business, a corporation that doesn't support your values. That's the opposite of how I feel when I see those metrics. And I'm like, oh my God.
Well, that's really nice of you to say, because that's what I hope. I guess like I said, at the end of the day, it's like all these, the ESG and the sustainability and all these kind of metrics get thrown around. Even they start to feel, maybe sort of empty it sometimes. It's like, but it's like, yeah, how do you feel? If I'm in a giant department store, yeah, it could be made with slave labor or poverty wages or whatever. Also, but just the thing itself, just the whole experience feels empty and humanless. And so I actually really appreciate you saying that, because I hope that too is right. Like, this just feels human. This just feels natural. Like, I know it's like actual human beings who are helping each other. You've created me. This company has created a nice thing with heart. Like when I get my mom something as a gift, off of DoneGood, it just feels more real and has more heart and feeling behind it. Than just sort of this empty, like I said, I don't know, it's just cranked out. Hey, I made 1 billion of these and I sold them to 1 billion other people, and it's not unique at all. And it's just a bunch of homogeneous shit. Like, again, now the ESG metrics, the impact on the world aside, I just feel like I'm getting a thing that's void.
That's not unique in any way.
Not unique at all. And so, like, it's also just that, like, it just feels better. I'm getting something higher quality. I guess that's the other thing, is like, I feel like it's not a sacrifice. You might have paid a little more, but it's better. It's a better deal. You know what I mean? For what you're getting, because it's real and it's higher quality, and it's going to be something that someone loves and will last. And that's, I guess, the thing, right? It's like the difference between consumption is like sort of, I don't know, a thoughtless decision and a thing, and then I throw the thing away, as opposed to like, I made a conscious choice. I love that thing. That is going to bring me joy, or give the person I'm giving this gift to joy for years to come. Like, yeah, that's cool. And I supported a good company, and I supported alternate systems, and I helped fight climate change, and I helped reduce poverty. I helped support a living wage for the person making this thing. Yeah, that feels good.
So that we had a webinar that I'll try to link in the show notes last year, I think. And you're echoing a lot of what we had a fashion psychologist on, and she was a lot of what you just said about just mindless consumption, and how do you shift that, and respecting the people, thinking about the hands that actually touch the garment that you're wearing, and how do you pay more respect to those people. So she's, in fashion, so she talks a lot about clothes, but echoing a lot of what you said. And it's a conscious decision, and it's a conscious thing to think about. You talk about how many slaves built this item that you have, the hands that touched everything that you just bought, and what they had to do to get it to you.
And I think it's also like, I try to leave people with like, all of this stuff can make people feel guilty or overwhelmed. And it's like, listen, man, but like I said at the top, right? 2% of your spending can have as much impact as all the donations to all the nonprofits. So it's even, listen, I had to buy something I try to avoid Amazon, obviously. I'm the founder at DoneGood. I had to buy something on Amazon last year. I left my computer charger at my sister's. Well, it was her fault. It's one of these two-part computer chargers. She pulled it in half, and I grabbed half, thinking I had my computer charger. I didn't have it, and I called 3 local places, even Best Buy being one of the local places. I don't know that that's any better than sticking Amazon. But I called like a couple like local places. Called Best Buy. None of them have this thing, and so I was like, shit. So I used my buddy's. I don't have a Prime membership, but my buddy does. So I used his login, and they were supposed to get it here. Like this was like 2 p.m. They're supposed to get it to me at 8 a.m. the next day. It was at my house 8 p.m. that night, and like, which is amazing. And yeah, what person had to is like injuring themselves packing stuff so fast? What driver is peeing in bottles to get it to me that fast? I didn't need it that fast, but I kind of needed it fast because it's my computer charger, so I can do work fighting Amazon. I had to buy it on Amazon, And so it's like, I get it. Or if you have kids, sometimes you will get them like some classic artisan made wood toys, and you're going to have to buy them whatever shitty plastic thing from China is cool that year. I understand. You know what I mean? It's like there are a million infinite things we could all be doing to help other people or fight climate change. Anytime any of us drives in a car, anytime any of us flies in a plane, but that's where it's like fly on the plane, buy carbon offsets, support the local economy when you get there, do a sustainable travel. Maybe you incorporate to volunteer. That travel can be net plus if you do it mindfully, right? And so it's like, don't feel guilty. Feel good about the progress. Move 10% of your money to awesome bridge to obviously I appreciate it if it's on DoneGood, but however that those companies are part of the movement, to fight poverty and climate change and the business for good movement. Move 10% of your money and make it 20%. Celebrate that progress, because if everyone did 2%, the world changes. So I don't know, if you're doing 50%, do as much as you can, but nobody's going to get to 100. I'm on the road sometimes. I eat Burger King. You know what I mean? I buy some shitty stuff. I eat some shitty foods. I drive in my car. I drive a car. You know what I mean? And it's not good. But I try to walk more, try to ride the bike more. And I drive the car some, and don't feel guilty. Just everybody make progress. Feel good about the progress instead of feeling
Do what
guilty.
you can. Yeah. Well, I've got 2 more things. One, I would love for you to talk about and plug your crowdfunding. And then 2, as next, I've got some rapid fire questions for you. So please tell us about crowdfunding.
Yeah, I can't believe I didn't bring this up sooner. But it's we have a crowdfunding campaign going on Start Engine, and so it's equity crowdfunding, which maybe a lot of folks know. It's kind of like a Kickstarter, but instead of Kickstarter is basically you're just like giving a company money. Equity crowdfunding, you're actually buying. You're actually making an investment in companies that aren't big enough to be on a stock exchange. Crowdfunding makes it so that anyone can invest even small amounts in startups. When before that used to be a cumbersome process. We had to raise just from accredited investors, or again, if you weren't big enough to IPO and be on a stock exchange. So it's crowdfunding, where equity crowdfunding means you can actually buy stock in startups. And so DoneGood has a crowdfunding campaign going now. And the minimum investment, we set it as low as the crowdfunding site would let us. It's $100. So that's but in terms of startup investments, in the past, that used to be the minimums used to be like 25,000, 50,000, stuff like this. And so yeah, it's $100. And those $100 investments actually really help us, because the crowdfunding platform has goals where they will give you more promotion on their site and to their email list. But those are per person goals, not based on like dollar amounts.
Not amount per investor goals.
It's just each person who invests, the number of investors, right? So when we got to 100 investors, we got around a promotion, and the next goal is 300 investors. But each investor, it doesn't matter if they invest 50,000 or they invest $100, counts the same as a person. So not only is the $100, it helps us do more good. It helps us. We plan to hire folks to triple the number of partner brands on our site over the next year. So we're going to get over 300 brands, have more selection. Our data shows that that's the number one barrier for additional purchases on our site. The number one thing we could do to increase conversion rate, average order value, more purchases per person,
number of merchants
per site visitor, is to increase product selection. When you're trying to be the Amazon of something, having almost 10,000 products and 120 some brands is a lot. And if you're looking for something specific like a pencil skirt, maybe we got 3 of them, and one's out of your budget, out of right price range, one's out of stock, and the other one, it's a great price. I don't like the design. Okay, cool. And we didn't help you. So tripling the number of brands, tripling the product selection in key strategic categories in particular, and then investing more in marketing. So it helps us do that, both to grow our business, but also that means we're growing our impact. We're helping more people make more purchases that do good for people on the planet. So, I mean, I think it's like as good of a, if you were going to donate, $100 or $1,000 to a nonprofit, I think we do as much good as a lot of nonprofits, but also, a donation, you have a 0% chance of getting a return. And of course, with an investment, you have a better percent chance than that of getting a return, right? And it is a large and growing market. I mean, when we can, NYU just put out another study that continues to show sustainable products are growing twice as fast as non-sustainable products. Sustainable products are driving 1/3 of the growth in all consumer product goods. Cantor did a study that says eco-actives, people who are trying to make eco-friendly purchasing decisions, is a $327 billion global industry. So the Amazon alternative for this huge market, especially as a conscious consumerism and sustainable shopping becomes more mainstream, the Amazon alternative will also be a huge and lucrative business. So, I think it also can be a great investment. And of course, the reason I do the work is because of the impact we can have at that level. If you have millions of people moving billions of dollars to fuel this whole movement of eco-friendly, worker empowering businesses, that changes everything. And in the meantime, every purchase does good for the world. Every purchase does good for people on the planet. So you're funding good now, you know what I mean? Like I said, I feel like it's as good as the most nonprofit donations you can make, but also you're funding a startup in a huge and growing market that could be, the Amazon alternative when this, as this kind of shopping continues to explode. So, it's on Start Engine.
We'll link in the show notes. We'll link to
yeah. And also on DoneGood.com, you can find link to the Start Engine page to our crowdfunding page pretty easily. So, and again, every if you're an angel investor type, we can also talk directly if you're talking about doing $50,000. But if it's like what you can afford is $100, again, $100 it helps us do good, but it also counts to the goals where when we get these rounds of promotion, we raise like $20,000 from the crowdfunding community of investors. So your $100 helps gets us to the goal where we can raise 20 grand. So it has an outsized impact. And so if it's if that's the kind of investment you can make, it does really make a difference. It makes a huge difference. One, just the $100, all these $100 investors added up, it's still real money, but hitting the goals so we can raise money we get more promotion from the crowdfunding site, like that's huge. So it's really helpful.
All right. So minimum investment amount, welcome as many as possible.
As many as possible. Like I said, the $100 investments. And I've been telling people if you and your significant other, if you were going to invest $200 or more, do $100.
Do twice.
Because it's two people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If that's how they're gonna measure our momentum to see if we get the extra promotion. Well, two people. It just is their system. Two people is twice as helpful as one. So I've had somebody do like $500, and I was like, I don't want to complain. I appreciate it, but it's like, your guys I know, friends of mine. I'd be like, yeah. You and your wife should have done 250
split it out.
Yeah, totally. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, awesome. Well, let's get into the rapid fire. Biggest success to date?
Being here. I think, quitting the career, having the let's not use gender normative terms for that. Having the gumption, let's say, right. To quit a career and then staying alive. They say VC is the number one thing they look at is founder resilience. If that's true, I think we have that in spades. We have kept pivoting, kept scrapping, kept it together, kept figuring out how to do better, stay alive, grow more, figuring out, like, really being students of the industry of e-commerce, recognizing that this was a mentor at the iLab told me one time that's really stuck with me. If a lot of people are trying to be the sustainable blank, the Amazon for sustainable good, the Yelp with a soul, the whatever it is. And it's like, whatever that blank is, you have to be really good at being the blank. We have to be good at e-commerce. We have to be good at digital marketing. We have to be good at, e-commerce UX. You know what I mean? Like I have to learn all that stuff. You have to really be a student of that industry. And yeah, just paying attention to our customers and our users and what they want, and figuring out how to keep honing the plan so that we can continue to stay alive, man, and keep it growing and keep growing.
It's
And
not nothing. It's
yeah,
not,
yeah,
it's not negligible. After 8 years, you're still in the game and
I think,
found
yeah,
a model that you're thriving. Like that's not nothing. You're right.
yeah,
Starting a business, as all of our listeners know, it's not nothing. And you're 8 years in. And so yeah, that makes
yeah. And so then like a lot of small victories that lead up to that, but like I think that's the thing. I mean, the just being here with the and the continually learning. Like you have to stay in that like student mode, I think, with learning, from your customers, your users, and from the industry that you're in. And yeah, I don't know. Okay, it's a rapid fire. I should be quick, so I'll stop. I'll stop talking.
right. Let's do the opposite then. Your biggest failure to date.
Yeah, gosh, again, I would say it's nothing in particular. Like, right, like so like the Yelp model didn't work. That's not a failure. We learned and pivoted. I actually think that's a badge of honor, right? That's why we're still that leads to the biggest success. We're still here because we didn't cling to that model, right? So I don't think it would be anything like that. I think it's one of the biggest challenges is having a brand that out of all these other brands. And so, right, it's like, and sort of, like, right, because it's so disparate. I mean, we've got, we've got like an outdoor gear company with this kind of brand serving this kind of customer. And we have like a high end sort of luxury dress, then they're serving this kind of customer. And like, so it's, that is a difficult thing, is to, have a brand and a core customer persona and stuff of our own when, the things these brands have in common are their ethics and but like the customer they serve is so it's disjointed. And so that is the difficult thing. And I think even just like kind of I don't know, our own brand and our own voice, like obviously look, this is me talking, but then I have that breathe through when all these, I don't know, I guess it's just that I would say the ongoing struggle and the thing that sort of frustrates me the most is like sort of harnessing our own brand voice. And even like that the connection between like, hey, look, this is the new kind of economy. This is the grassroots revolution that we need to change the world. This is how we get out of the system. This is how we can our force for change. And then you come to our stand, there's a $300 like sundress, and it's like, well, are you a revolution for change, or are you selling high-end sundresses? And it's like, well, look, both. You know what I mean? Like, but like squaring all this stuff into like one cohesive brand, one cohesive message, one cohesive feel. That's that's I just continue to try to do it better.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Most important lesson you've learned to date?
Geez, was it that one? No. Okay, actually, I got one for this. And I'll say it's not necessarily, although it does relate to the business and everything. Tone, like your tone, that we were talking about this a little at the top before we started, I think, but the tone you talk to yourself, the tone with which you like experience life, like is your life. That is how you experience life. And we can still have ambition, we can still work hard, we can still have goals, but with which tone am I, well, what's my tone as I'm working toward those things? And is it like, oh, you suck, or oh, you have to work harder, or like, oh, this has to feel like drudgery? Or is it like, I want to do this and I choose to do that? So I'll give you, I actually, I had the last couple of years, I started seeing a therapist for the first time, and I like to talk about it. I think I like these younger generations in particular, like this stigma is going away, but like, okay, if we
I
can
love
help this stigma.
therapy. I think everybody should
Yes,
have a therapist.
me too. I wish everyone could. My mom, these older generations, like, but do I need therapy? I don't know, Mom. Do you need exercise? Exercise is healthy and exercise is good. And just because I suggest that exercise is healthy doesn't mean I think you're out of shape. You know what I'm saying? Like, exercise is good for your body. Therapy is good for mental health. So between that, and I also ended up talking with a coach a little bit, entrepreneur coach, and I was, I was coach. Like a coach is just an unlicensed therapist. The coaches are full of shit. But this, I actually talked to this guy, and it was a good experience. And I did like a 2-day mountain retreat with him, where we did this exercise where it was like I guess the long story short is the difference between self-judgment and curiosity. We did this exercise where then I asked myself a question in a very self-judgmental way. Then I asked myself the same question. The only difference between self-judgment and curiosity is the tone of voice with which you ask the question. It is really just changing your tone. And since then, I started to see tone just everywhere. Like I can do all the same things. I can, like instead of you suck, it's first of all, I'm 80% good at this. Let's acknowledge that. And is there 20% I'd like to do better at? Great. So you found something you'd like to do better at. Cool. Do that thing, man. Like that's exciting. That's fun. Instead of, oh, you suck. Like it's the same shit. And I think there's some, I'd have fear like, well, if I don't hold myself to account, if I don't try super hard, then I'll just cop out and I'll just be lazy. Look, I don't know, man. You can have ambition and you can practice self-care and not be lazy at the same time. And you know what that feels like. Get out of your head and just feel the tone with which it is you are both being ambitious and not murdering yourself. And you know where that lies. If you shut up and shut your head off and feel that. And so I guess throughout all of the 8 years with DoneGood, I mean, I know that's, I don't know, that's an entrepreneur lesson, but that's a life,
No,
that's a thing
absolutely. That's a
most
huge
profound and I think it translates into your company and how you deal with the work and how you deal with your team. And, it really just, it matters. Like I said, the only difference between self-judgment and curiosity is the tone with which you ask the question. And now, like, I just started seeing that tone is everything and tone is everywhere. And I can always think about the tone with which I'm doing the work. Is it drudgery or is it like, no, I choose to do this work. You can stop at any time. No, okay, I'd like to. I want this. I believe in this. I think this is good. And at 8 p.m., I'm going to stop. I'm going to eat. You know what I mean? Like, so everything is tone. That's the most important thing.
And that must have contributed a lot to your resilience as well, because of course, this is your self-talk. The tone in which you talk to yourself is something everybody needs to look at. For entrepreneurs specifically, when this is the drudgery and the sometimes heartbreak and just the pain of being an entrepreneur and just staying in the game, this is hugely important. And so you talked a little bit about resilience and just that your team has got that in spades. So yeah, self-talk must be getting a handle on that.
The first few years, it was the resilience of the, running football drills and run until you puke and then keep it on running. Cause that's just how I am. It was the other kind of, it was the, I just power through, which like keeps you going and can help. I mean, it helped, you know what I mean? But it was that kind of resilience and the kind of resilience that slowly killed me. And slowly, like, which is like a grind. I grind and I never stop grinding. And like, look, that kind of determination, it powers you through and it keeps you going. I am, I guess, quote unquote, mentally tough in that way. And boy, it kind of, I like didn't realize like just how unhealthy that was. And like that grind on your soul and your mental health, isn't good. And you could and so now it's the same thing. You know what I mean? I still get to keep going and power through and work hard, but I don't feel like I'm working hard. It is because it's with that different tone. And it contributes to the resilience just as well, but in a way that feels peaceful and soft and comforting and like is keeping me healthy instead of unhealthy. So that's been the shift. Instead of the I am Iron Man, I will never die, I will power through, I will break the walls, and it doesn't matter how much it's hurting me. You know what I mean? Like, okay, I mean, cool, man. I mean, like if you have to for a minute, but like that's how you're gonna live. That's not good, and it's not. This is the thing. It is actually less effective because you are strained and you're not as creative and you're not as cool and you're not as inspiring to your team and it's not as cool a place to work and it's, you know what I mean? And I think it is actually more effective if you can do it with that more positive tone, and then take the breaks to put yourself in that higher state of consciousness where you are creative more often, and giving your team the space to be more creative instead of just the drudgery of the day to day. We got to get this and we got to hit the goals. And like, yeah, you do. You got to be creative. You got to have space to like have fun and think of new clever shit. And you can't do that when you're stressed and grinding and checking off the to-do list all the time. It's really true.
I agree. All right. If you could get 85% of the world to adopt a single behavior, what would that be?
Well, conscious consumerism, I suppose. I mean, that would be, if 85% of people were just like using 40% of their purchases at with these kind of companies, like the ones that are out there good. I mean, seriously, the world's changed. The world is very different, because even that much, then it shows the big corporations like that there's enough consumer demand about this that they will change their behavior too. And then the world is, I mean, climate change is fine, poverty, we've solved it. Like, you know what I mean? That's it. And then eventually that was in college, I also wrote a paper about the new utopian ideal of the 21st century. And it was like, the 20th capitalism versus communism will be the 20th century's problem. At some point, we will just use capitalism and once every business is equitable and paying living wages, or maybe even just a worker-owned co-op, right? Like, what's the difference between capitalism and communism? It doesn't matter, And when every business is sustainable, we don't need to argue about environmental regulations. Just businesses are like that because consumers won't stand it any other way. Nobody would ever shop at another company like that. So not all the companies are like that, right? So I guess that is one. I guess I feel like along the lines of what we were just talking about, I feel like I should have a more enlightened answer as well. But obviously, conscious consumerism, I do think, is the key to saving the world and to the hope for humanity, right? And changing the economic system. So I guess that would be
Okay.
yeah, I guess that would be my answer.
All right. And
maybe that in therapy.
That in
Yeah.
I like that one too.
Yeah.
That one too. I'm a big therapy advocate.
Me too.
So then can you plug again your website? Where can we find you?
DoneGood.com.
Online, social media. Yeah,
DoneGood.com. And then at DoneGood Team is our social media handle on, I think, all of them, all the platforms. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're on all the social medias, and I guess probably not all, but all the big ones. And DoneGood.com is our site, and you can get to our crowdfunding page from there to make an investment. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if you are a more traditional angel investor and you're talking about 25,000, 50,000 kind of, you can also just, email us at team@donegood.co, and they'll route you to me, and we can talk one-on-one. But again, if you're $100 investor, or 500, 1,000, any kind of small investments like that, even $100 counts toward the crowdfunding site's goals, where they promote us more, right? So $100 really makes a huge impact, and just like I said, helps us. Every purchase on our site helps someone lift themselves out of poverty and fight climate change. So even if it were a donation, I think it'd be a good way to donate $100, but it's not. It's an investment, and you can earn a return. So even if it's out of the sort of the donation budget, I don't want to take the money from NPR or the other great organizations who do it, but for $100, I would think of it like that. It'll help do more good now, and you might get the money back later. You might earn more later as we continue to grow. So it's cool to be able to do an investment through equity crowdfunding where this didn't exist a few years ago. The regulations didn't allow for regular people to make investments in small amounts like this. So I think it's a cool thing. We're always, we're a grassroots movement, and so being able to raise money through a grassroots crowdfunding campaign feels better than just having to approach VCs and wealthy people.
Yeah, that feels good. Cullen, thank you so much for chatting with us. This has been a super rich conversation full of nice, actionable nuggets, and it's great to hear your story as well. So thank you so much for being such an animated guest and sharing so much with us.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. Anytime I get to stop and talk about like the basic purpose and why I do it, like it helps, you know what I mean? Now I'm going to have a better day because I have taken this time to, like what we were just talking about, right? Like not just in the drudgery, checking off the to-do list, oh, I got all this stuff to do. It's like, it's very recentering to just be able to talk about the why and the purpose behind it all. And so I really appreciate it.
Awesome. And any B1 merchants or any merchant that you feel like might be a good fit. If you want to check out and get in touch with Cullen, I guess through the same channels, just head over to the DoneGood .com
DoneGood.com. Yep. Yeah, and
and
you
get
can
in
email us,
touch.
or there's a form on our contact the contact us site for businesses who might want to join.
Awesome. All right,
Yep.
everyone, we'll see you on B1.